He injected the wrong serum, and the alien woman's reaction was unbelievable. The mistake. The orbital research station Meridian drifted in the gravitational embrace of Callisto's ice-scarred surface, a fragile bubble of life against the endless void. Inside its metal corridors and bioluminescent-lit labs, life proceeded according to careful schedules and monitored protocols, at least until the morning DR. Nathan Westbrook accidentally rewrote the laws of biochemistry with a single misdirected injection. Nathan stumbled into Xenobiology Lab 14, his uniform bearing the telltale wrinkles of someone who'd optimistically believed he could get 5 more minutes of sleep and ended up with 5 less. His thermal mug of reconstituted coffee wobbled dangerously as he sidestepped a maintenance drone that chirped what sounded suspiciously like an insult. "Good morning, Dr. Westbrook." Kara's voice filled the lab with artificial cheerfulness. "Your first appointment is in 7 minutes. Also, you're still wearing yesterday's badge with the name, Captain Awesome, courtesy of last night's crew game." Nathan groaned, swapping badges. "Thanks for the reminder, Kara. And maybe next time, don't broadcast my embarrassing moments to the whole lab." Noted. "Though I must inform you that the entire station is already aware, as you sang a rather enthusiastic rendition of Don't Stop Believing through the corridors at 0200 hours. 2 syringes waited in the cooling unit, each labeled with precise text. One read, Thuralian Calcium Stabilizer, the other, Serum KV-27, Catharian Metabolic Enhancer, Experimental. Lost in contemplating whether his career could survive his karaoke performance, Nathan grabbed both vials. His mind, still foggy from lack of sleep and residual embarrassment, failed to register the importance of matching the right injection to the right patient. Meanwhile, in the hydroponics bay, Talia Vran adjusted the photon collectors on a row of Catharian fireflowers. Her movements carried the fluid precision of someone who understood the delicate balance between technology and biology. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin pulsed gently with each breath, creating shifting constellations that responded to her emotional state. She sensed Nathan's approach before she heard him. Catharians possessed heightened awareness, and his particular biosignature had become familiar during their weeks of working together. "Dr. Westbrook," she greeted him, turning. Her eyes, amber with flecks of gold, met his. "Your temporal accuracy has improved. You are only 192 seconds behind schedule today." Nathan cleared his throat. "Progress, right? Here for your metabolic stabilizer shot. Standard procedure for extended stays in human-compatible environments." Talia extended her arm, the patterns on her skin dimming slightly, a Catharian's equivalent of rolling up a sleeve. "I appreciate your diligence, though the process seems unnecessarily repetitive. Catharian biology is remarkably adaptable." "Protocols are protocols," Nathan replied, injecting the serum. What he didn't realize was that he'd just administered the experimental compound KV-27, designed specifically to enhance mating responses in Catharian subjects. Talia's reaction was immediate and subtle. The bioluminescent patterns flared briefly, then settled into new configurations. Her pupils dilated marginally, and her respiratory rate increased by precisely 4.3 breaths per minute, changes that would have been imperceptible to anyone but a trained xenobiologist who wasn't currently distracted by coffee withdrawal. "That felt unusual," Talia commented, her voice taking on a harmonic undertone it hadn't possessed before. Nathan's medical instincts kicked in. "Define unusual." "Pain? Discomfort?" "Neither. A sensation of expansion. As if my perceptions have widened." A notification chimed on Nathan's datapad, and his blood ran cold as he read the automated lot number verification. He'd just injected an experimental compound that interfaced directly with Catharian mating hormones, a substance never tested on a subject in actual diplomatic service. "Kara," he muttered, trying not to panic, hypothetical question, what happens if someone accidentally administers KV-27 to a Catharian instead of their regular stabilizer? Accessing databases. Dr. Westbrook, KV-27 is designed to trigger the Vechteria phase in Catharian subjects. This is a complex hormonal cascade that. Skip to the effects, please. Enhanced sensory perception, increased emotional receptivity, elevated pheromone production, and activation of the neural bonding pathways. The subject may experience intense attraction patterns incompatible with standard diplomatic protocols. Talia's eyes widened as she absorbed Kara's explanation. Are you suggesting that you've accidentally initiated my species' mating cycle? Nathan swallowed hard. That depends. Do you suddenly find my terrible jokes and subpar coffee breath appealing? I find your attempt at humor in crisis endearing, she replied. The patterns on her skin began to pulse in rhythmic waves. This is concerning. Back in his lab, Nathan frantically searched through research databases while Talia sat calmly on the examination table, watching him with new intensity. Her eyes seemed to track his every movement, and her bioluminescent patterns shifted with colors he'd never seen before. According to these studies, Nathan said, the effects should be temporary. We just need to synthesize a counteragent before the neural bonding becomes permanent. Define permanent, Talia requested. Well, in Catharian terms, it means your biology would recognize me as your lifelong mate, creating an unbreakable emotional and possibly telepathic connection. Talia considered this. Your species has no such biological imperative. We have awkward first dates and complicated breakups. Much less efficient. I see. Her patterns flickered. You should know that I'm beginning to find your disheveled appearance aesthetically pleasing. Nathan dropped his stylus. That's definitely the hormones talking. Perhaps. Or perhaps I'm simply noticing qualities I previously overlooked. Kara interrupted, Dr. Westbrook, I should inform you that Talia's pheromone production has increased by 347%. The air filtration system is struggling to compensate. Also, 3 cleaning drones have begun following her, and maintenance reports they're refusing standard commands. Nathan and Talia looked out the lab window to see a small parade of cleaning bots lined up in the corridor, their sensors pointed directly at her. This is professionally problematic, Talia observed. This is personally terrifying, Nathan countered. The next few hours became a blur of research, failed antidote attempts, and increasingly obvious symptoms. Talia found herself drawn to Nathan's presence, while he discovered that her natural luminescence had become inexplicably mesmerizing. By midday, they'd established what they called the professional distance protocol, maintaining at least 3 meters of separation to minimize pheromone exposure. This proved challenging when they both reached for the same data tablet and their fingers brushed, sending what felt like static electricity through both their nervous systems. Your touch generates a pleasant bioelectric response, Talia noted clinically. Your skin is literally glowing more when I'm near you, Nathan responded. We need to solve this before tomorrow's diplomatic briefing. Agreed. Though I must admit, I'm finding your determined expression rather compelling. Nathan ran a hand through his hair. Talia, we need to focus. Your species ambassador arrives in 48 hours, and we cannot explain that you've been accidentally pair-bonded to a human who once mistook a centrifuge for a coffee maker. That incident does reflect poorly on your observational skills, she agreed. However, your dedication to correcting this error is admirable. As the day progressed, the situation evolved from concerning to critical. Talia's emotional responses became more pronounced, her usual diplomatic reserve giving way to unexpected moments of warmth and humor. Nathan found himself struggling to maintain professional detachment as her enhanced state seemed to highlight every fascinating aspect of her personality he'd previously overlooked. By evening, they'd managed to synthesize a potential antidote, a complex compound that might disrupt the bonding process before it became irreversible. As Nathan prepared the injection, his hands trembled slightly. Are you certain this is what you want? He asked. Once we administer this, any connection between us will be severed at a biochemical level. Talia's patterns dimmed thoughtfully. The logical course is clear. Yet I find myself wondering if perhaps some mistakes lead to unexpected discoveries. Nathan looked at her, truly looked, and saw not just the effects of a chemical error but a brilliant, complex being who had somehow become central to his thoughts in ways that transcended mere biology. "We should run more tests," he said finally. "Make sure we understand all the implications before we act." "A prudent suggestion," Talia agreed, her patterns brightening. After all, proper scientific method requires thorough observation. As Meridian's artificial night cycle began, casting long shadows through the lab, Nathan and Talia found themselves at a crossroads between correction and possibility, protocol and feeling, the known and the wonderfully uncertain. Neither noticed Kara dimming the lights incrementally or how the cleaning drones had arranged themselves in what appeared to be a heart formation outside the lab door. Sometimes, it seemed, even artificial intelligence understood that the best discoveries often came from the most unexpected mistakes. The bond. The containment protocol simulation room had been Kara's idea, a controlled environment where Nathan and Talia could study the progression of their accidental bond without triggering station-wide alarms. What Kara hadn't mentioned was her decision to model it after a Venetian restaurant circa 2185, complete with holographic gondolas drifting past simulated windows and a suspiciously romantic ambience. "This seems excessive," Nathan muttered, adjusting his collar. He wore what Kara insisted was appropriate attire for cross-species diplomatic dining, which looked suspiciously like a date outfit. Talia entered, her usual researcher's uniform replaced by a flowing garment that shifted colors with her bioluminescent patterns. The fabric seemed to capture and amplify her natural glow, creating an ethereal effect that made Nathan momentarily forget how to breathe. "Dr. Westbrook," she greeted him, a hint of amusement in her voice. "Kara informed me this simulation would help us understand our biological responses in a social context." "Right, yes, science," Nathan managed. "Purely professional observation of involuntary biochemical reactions." Naturally, Talia agreed, though her patterns pulsed with what he was beginning to recognize as suppressed laughter. They sat at a table materialized by the simulation, holographic candles casting flickering shadows. Kara's voice floated around them, "Please proceed with normal social interaction while I monitor your vital signs and pheromone levels." Nathan picked up his menu, trying to ignore how Talia's presence seemed to fill his awareness. "So, how are you finding the research station?" "Increasingly fascinating," she replied, her amber eyes fixed on him. "Particularly the unexpected variables in my current assignment." Before Nathan could respond, the doors slid open with an authoritative hiss. A tall figure strode in, another Catharian, his bioluminescent patterns arranged in rigid, formal configurations that screamed authority and displeasure. "Talia Vran," the newcomer announced, his voice resonating with barely contained irritation. "I am Sarek Vethel, sent by the High Council to retrieve you." Nathan felt something protective flare in his chest. "Excuse me, but this is a restricted area." "Dr. Westbrook, I presume," Sarek interrupted, his patterns flashing dismissively. "The human responsible for contaminating our diplomat with experimental compounds." Talia stood, her own patterns shifting to match Sarek's formal configuration. "Sarek, your arrival is unexpected. As was the report of your compromised status," Sarek replied. "The Council has decided. You will return with me to undergo purification protocols, after which our betrothal will proceed as planned." "Betrothal?" Nathan's voice cracked slightly. Talia's patterns dimmed. "A political arrangement made before my assignment here. I had hoped to postpone it indefinitely through my research." Sarek stepped forward, his presence commanding. "The bonding serum in your system will be neutralized. Your attachment to this human will fade." "And if I refuse?" Talia asked quietly. "Then you forfeit your position, your research privileges, and your standing within Catharian society." The silence that followed was broken only by the simulated sound of water lapping against gondolas. Nathan watched Talia's patterns cycle through emotions he was just beginning to understand: defiance, uncertainty, and something that looked remarkably like determination. Kara, Nathan called out, end simulation. The Venetian restaurant dissolved, leaving them in the stark reality of the containment room. Nathan turned to Talia. You don't have to do this. We have the antidote ready. You can reverse the effects and go with him if that's what you want. And what do you want, Nathan? Talia asked, using his first name for the first time. He met her gaze. I want to know if what I'm feeling is just chemicals or something more. I want to understand why your laugh makes my entire day better, why watching you work with those fire flowers feels like witnessing art. You want what the serum has manufactured, Sarek interjected. An artificial connection doomed to fail. No, Talia said firmly. The serum may have initiated certain responses, but it cannot create genuine connection where none exists. She turned to Nathan. I've observed you for weeks before this incident. Your dedication, your humor in the face of adversity, your genuine care for understanding other species, these things I noticed before any chemical intervention. Nathan felt warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with alien pheromones. So what do we do? Talia walked to the medical cabinet and retrieved the antidote vial. For a moment, she held it up to the light, watching the liquid swirl. Then, with deliberate calm, she placed it in the disposal chute. Talia. Sarek protested. I choose to explore this path, she declared. Not because of a serum, but because I've found something worth risking everything for. Sarek's patterns flared with anger. The council will not accept this. Then they'll have to adapt, Talia replied. As I have learned to adapt, to grow beyond the rigid constraints of our traditions. With a final flash of disapproval, Sarek departed, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Nathan and Talia stood in silence for a moment before he asked, Are you sure about this? I'm sure that I want to find out, she replied. Though we should probably synthesize another antidote, just in case. Agreed. But maybe we take our time with the research. Her patterns shifted to warm golds and roses. A thorough investigation does require extensive observation. Kara's voice interrupted, If I may suggest, doctors, perhaps begin with something less formal than a diplomatic crisis. There's a lovely observation deck on level 7 where the view of Callisto is particularly stunning during the current orbital phase. Nathan grinned. Kara, are you playing matchmaker? I am simply optimizing crew morale and facilitating cross-cultural research opportunities. Talia moved closer to Nathan, her natural luminescence casting soft light on his features. Shall we conduct some field research, Dr. Westbrook? He offered his arm, feeling the pleasant tingle where her hand touched him. Lead the way, Dr. Vran. As they walked through the station, passing curious crew members and a parade of still devoted cleaning drones, Nathan realized that sometimes the best discoveries came from embracing uncertainty rather than correcting it. Days turned into weeks as they navigated their unusual situation. They developed protocols for managing the biological effects while exploring the emotional connection that grew stronger each day. The research became personal, each interaction revealing new layers of understanding between human and Catharian. The turning point came during a late-night session in the astrobiology lab. Talia was demonstrating how Catharian fire flowers responded to different wavelengths of light, her patterns synchronizing with the plant's bioluminescence. They're beautiful, Nathan whispered, though he wasn't looking at the flowers. Talia turned to him, her patterns shifting to deep purples and blues. On my world, when two beings choose each other despite all obstacles, we say they've found their stellar their star mirror. Someone who reflects your light back to you, making it stronger. And what do we do when we find our stellar mirror? We hold on to them, she said softly, and never let go. Their first kiss was a confluence of biology and choice, chemistry and connection. It tasted like stardust and possibility, like every risk worth taking and every rule worth breaking. Months later, when the Catharian ambassador finally arrived for the diplomatic summit, they found Talia and Nathan had already rewritten the protocols for human-Catharian relations. Their research paper on unintended catalysts in cross-species bonding became required reading at xenobiology institutes across the galaxy. Sarek eventually returned, not as a spurned suitor but as a reluctant ally, admitting that their bond had sparked discussions about updating ancient Catharian traditions. "You've created quite a precedent," he told them during a formal dinner. Nathan squeezed Talia's hand under the table. "We prefer to think of it as a happy accident." "The best kind," Talia agreed, her patterns dancing with joy. In the end, the serum that had started everything was relegated to a footnote in their story. The real formula, the one that mattered, was written in shared laughter, mutual respect, and the courage to embrace the unexpected. As they stood together on the observation deck, watching Callisto rise over Jupiter's vast horizon, Nathan reflected on how a single mistake had led to the greatest discovery of his life. "No regrets?" Talia asked, sensing his contemplative mood. "Only that I didn't make this mistake sooner," he replied. Her patterns flared with warmth as she leaned against him, and somewhere in the station's core, Kara quietly archived their biometric data under a file labeled Successful Cross-Species Integration, a love story. Sometimes, the universe had a way of correcting course by creating beautiful errors, mistakes that weren't mistakes at all, but destiny wearing a lab coat and carrying the wrong syringe.